There is. If you would like to, you don't have to. I didn't bring your name.
So one of the things I'm going to ask for.
I have to tell you, I was a little nervous because this is the first time I'm doing this process. But we're good to go. We're live.
We can always call.
No, I can do this. I can.
So we don't know.
Okay, if you're all ready, I'd like to call to order the task force meeting for the financing of civic infrastructure. And I think that we will start with roll call. Who's going to do that?
I'll do roll call.
You're going to do that? Okay.
Yep. Chair McBroom? Chair McBroom? Here? Present?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
All here.
Vice Chair David?
Can't hear, though.
Member Hale?
Here.
Member Honig?
Here.
Member Keneally?
Here.
Member Wallach?
Here.
Member Ward? Here. And as a reminder to please make sure you click on your mic when you're ready to talk and unclick when you're done. Thank you.
Okay, we now have an opportunity to entertain public comment on the business that's before the task force. So I'd ask, is there anyone who would like to make comment at this time on the work before the task force? All right, hearing none, we will proceed to the agenda item number 4.1, which is the approval of the meeting minutes from the first meeting, of which I think the one we were all appointed. Can we approve these together, or do we need to approve them separately?
You can approve them together.
Okay, so, and also is 4.2, which is the meeting minutes from our meeting from 2 weeks ago. So can I entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the last two meetings?
So moved.
Second? Do I have a second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. We're now going to move on to reports from the subcommittees. With just a little preamble to that, to remind everybody, we have about, I think our initial charter was to take 3 months to do this work. We're a month into it. So we have about 8 weeks left if we take the time allotted. So I'd like to hear a brief summary from each subcommittee on what they've done so far and what they hope to accomplish in the near term, like before next meeting, 2 weeks from now. And also, obviously, if there's any needs that they've encountered where they've not been able to obtain information or anything like that. And kind of a brief summary of what's left on the agenda. What does the next 6 weeks after that look like? So we're going to start with 5.1. We're going to ask, I think Ms. Honig is going to give the summary for the Finance Committee.
So we have had our first subcommittee meeting, which was last week, and Patrick has been amazing in digging through 600 pages of budgets and numbers and pulling it all together in a cohesive whole, and put together a pretty amazing spreadsheet that's been very useful. And we met this morning with Mark, and now we're marching forward. So we'll clean and refine these and meet back, and I suspect time to work with someone else. Patrick, did I cover it all?
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question would be, what do you hope to have accomplished by the next meeting?
By the next meeting, Patrick, you tell us.
I would say version 2.0 of our spreadsheet, which lists all the possible revenue sources for the city as we understand them that apply towards the projects we're considering, and then second, an exhaustive list of called the capital spending around those projects, as well as the ones inside our projects, just to get a basic idea of how the finances add up.
Do you see any issue at all meeting the schedule to
No.
have everything done within the next
No.
8 weeks? Okay.
No.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Real Estate Development Subcommittee, Mr. David. Oh, Mr. Hale.
Our committee has formed and met a couple times. We are compiling site files. With these, we're going to analyze the aspects to include asset value, most powerful and best uses, development potential, long-term sustainability, and economic generation and/or loss. The goal is to establish and analyze the value of these community assets currently and measure and frame that value developed in different scenarios. We will analyze what those uses and configurations can provide and how placement of uses can best empower their function, elevate adjacent areas and sites and liberate potentially other sites for other uses. We expect to have rough drafts of those files at next meeting.
Thank you. I'll give the update for the construction subcommittee. We've met a couple of times. We've divided the work up into two basic categories. One being looking at the infrastructure of the city, specifically the storm sewer system, and also associated with that, the streetscape plan. We have met with representatives from Public Works and gained a pretty good understanding of the work that is facing them and the financing that they have already arranged or have in mind. The other half of our task, I think, is looking at the construction specifics of the proposed buildings for the City Hall and Police Station. We've asked for the detail from Nolan Tam, I think it is, the architect, both on their programming, and that is how did they come up with the 8,500 square feet or 10,000 square feet or whatever the number is, by looking at the elements that they use to come up with the building need and either confirming or not that subject. And we'd like to look at the construction cost estimates too. They came up, I think we're dealing with a number in the neighborhood of $1,000 a foot. We'd like to see where that number came from and make sure it can be substantiated. Our plan for the next couple of weeks, I think we can accomplish a rough estimate of the funding that might be required for the underground infrastructure that we're looking at. I think we can also come up with some rough estimates for City Hall and police station construction depending on where they are built. There may be some site-specific costs associated with a building, whether it's built on an existing Adams Street, whether it's co-located with library, whether it's placed on the old City Hall site, et cetera. So I would think there would be, in 2 weeks' time, chance to come up with some rough estimates of what that would take. And then after that, I think we plan to vet those estimates with some of our professional contractor friends and other members on city staff to make sure that our numbers are legit and make sense. So that's pretty much our plan for the next 2 weeks. I think it'd probably be appropriate to ask if there are any questions of anybody else before we get on. Editorial is not going to happen yet. I mean, item number 5.4 on our agenda, Pat and I think, are that committee, and we're obviously not going to start writing for another couple of weeks, although I think we're probably going to start outlining what a report might look like. It might help us guide the nature of the investigation we do. So are there any questions on items 5.1 through 5.3? Okay. Hearing none, let's talk about information requests. Are there any that have not been made, or any seen upcoming in the next week or two that city staff might be advised of? City staff, by the way, I found them very, very accessible and very accommodating in terms of providing information. I hope you all have seen the same thing. All right.
I think I'll add one. I mean, I think folks have been great. The one issue that we haven't touched is to get, what I'll consider a
Microphone.
a tighter estimate of the city's borrowing capacity.
Okay.
It probably needs to come from an outside expert, not,
Right. Is there anything else that any of the committee members see as task force members see as maybe requiring the city staff to do some prep work for us? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 7. We'll talk about items on the agenda for our next meeting, which is 2 weeks from today at 3 o'clock. I presume that we'll do another committee update similar to the one we are doing today, and that should be on the agenda for sure. and probably, we'd probably want to renew the agenda item for review of documents or any special requests for city. I think by 2 weeks from now, we should have a pretty good idea of where the numbers are going, and we should be fine-tuning them by that point. No? All right. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you all.
Right on.